Yeah, g'day everybody. Wade Northhausen here for Billboard Battalion. We're coming to you live today from Koyuga in north central Victoria, Australia. Today is the 8th of June, Sunday the 8th of June 2025. So we're getting closer, we're getting further down the track now of what's happening in Australia that's going to cause us a whole hell of a lot of concern and problems. And I just wanted to start to touch base on some of the people who we've had on the scenes, if you like, in terms of some of our billionaires, some of Australia's richest people. And I wanted to look at it from the perspective of Australia is in a huge amount of trouble, and our politicians are getting us into a lot more. They've almost got us to the point of no return. On the 16th of July this year, an event is, the 19th of July this year, an event is going to happen that is going to change Australia forever. And that is Australia, unless we can do something about it to stop it, unless we pull the pin, Australia, by doing no more, will become signed up to the international health regulations. This is the World Health Organization, terrorist organization that they are, international health regulations. So I just want people to start to get an understanding of what that actually means. And that is a catastrophic situation where, long story short, the World Health Organization, who are part of the WEF and the UN, who hate Australia. They are absolutely committed to the destruction of our country. They will then, if they decide to declare a pandemic, and keep in mind that they're telling us, absolutely, we're going to have more pandemics. And they know that because they're the ones creating them. But in the event that the World Health Organization declares a pandemic, and whatever wording that they use, they then effectively will be given complete and absolute control over everything that happens in Australia. And when I say everything, I mean everything. So the bottom line is you've got a group of people, an organisation, a structure that absolutely hates our country. They want, and by their own admission, they want to talk about population reduction, massive numbers of people to be killed, and our government will hand over the ability for them to do precisely that. So where do our Australian billionaires come into this? Well, it's very interesting that I wanted to talk about two specifically. Number one is Gina Rinehart, and number two is our old mate Clive Palmer. So first of all, the main question that we are going to look at here are these two Australian billionaires. Are they actually working to save Australia, or are they a part of helping to destroy it? And, the reason I look at that is because both of these people, both Clive Palmer and Gina Rinehart, have been very, very public in comments or commentary or, trying to give people the illusion that they're fighting for us. And when we look at Clive Palmer makes a lot of statements about Australia and patriots and, fighting to keep our country safe and so on, and not wanting to have all this foreign takeovers, to the tune where he actually, two federal elections ago, as far as I understand, invested around about $100 million in supposedly trying to get politicians from his party, United Australia Party, into every federal seat. Now, he put in reportedly $100 million. And the result for this $100 million was very, very, very small. We did get a politician in. We got Ralph Babet in, and Ralph Babet, quite frankly, has, I think, done a really, really good job. He's he's been out on a limb on his own for quite a long time, and Ralph tells it as it is. He goes for it. He goes for broke. And I think that Ralph is certainly somebody who is fighting for Australia, without any doubt. But so then we have a look at what happened back then. We had billboards all over Australia 3 years ago with Clive Palmer's mug on it. Now, Clive spent a lot of money promoting, that's right, yeah, Clive Palmer. And while he's supposedly talking about, fighting for our country, I think that we need to have a bit more of a closer look at that and see whether, in fact, that was what happened. So we come to this federal election that we've just had only weeks ago, and Clive Palmer got involved with another political party called Trumpet of Patriots. And Clive, I think, put in a lot of money to run a campaign based on the Trumpets of Patriots party. And he reportedly, as far as I know, put in about another $60 million. So he's put quite a lot of money in. And I'm just thinking to myself, what has been the actual results, the tangible results? So a while ago, I suppose maybe even a year ago, I thought, well, let's approach Clive Palmer on behalf of Billboard Battalion and put the case to Clive Palmer that if he is truly an Australian patriot and he's fighting for our country, then there's no one in Australia who is putting more effort and honesty and information and education to the Australian people than Billboard Battalion on what is actually happening. The no holds barred, here are the facts, here is the truth, this is what is going to be done to us, this is what's being done to us, and this is how we need to go forward and fight this, and we need to bring the entire Australian population on board and get them to understand what's happened. And that will give us the capacity to fight back against the politicians. So Clive Palmer, he was really, really terrific. He was quite willing to talk to us. No, he wasn't. That's actually sarcasm. Clive Palmer didn't seem to be wanting to talk to us at all, which I thought, now that's odd for somebody who has, supposedly put up that he's an Australian patriot and fighting for Australia. Because in terms of Billboard Battalion and Wade Northhausen, Farmer Wade, I've been fighting this for 40 years. Billboard Battalion was formed in June 2022, and we've been going hard at it, as hard as we can possibly go. No holds barred. Here's the truth. We are the real ones who are fighting for our country. So you would think that Clive Palmer, if he genuinely was about, doing what he says, then he would be more than happy to meet with a group who's already proven that what they do works. They just need the financial backing to give it capacity. However, Clive Palmer, of numerous attempts to contact Clive and have a meeting and put forward the case, actually doesn't want to talk to us at all. So I start to question, well, is Clive Palmer really actually somebody who is in the interest of fighting for Australia? I'm starting to think not. These are my opinions. I'm getting to be pretty concerned about where Clive Palmer is actually coming from. Because the bottom line is, as I said before, the World Health Organization will take complete and absolute control of our country by July 19, 2025, unless we do something to stop it. So that means that anything that Clive Palmer might say, putting up candidates, trying to run a campaign for the for the last two federal elections, is completely and absolutely worthless. It is pointless if this happens on the 19th of July 2025. So therefore, I have to really wonder about whether Clive is a liar, whether Clive Palmer is actually interested in our country. And I'm starting to develop the opinion very seriously that he is a liar, and he's most certainly not interested in the well-being of our country, because the level that Clive operates at with the global elites, I'm pretty sure, and once again my opinions, I'm pretty sure that Clive would absolutely be aware of the things that are scheduled to happen to Australia and to the Australian people. And you couldn't operate at the levels that he does and not know this stuff. So therefore, I have enormous concerns over where Clive Palmer's at. I also would say that, we tried to get to speak to one of his candidates, one of his chief candidates, and she seemed to have just disappeared. It was very, very interesting that we couldn't get hold of Clive's number one candidate. So I'm very, very concerned all of a sudden that, we do have a war going on against our country. This is being waged by the global elites. This is including, as part of their team, most of the federal politicians, state politicians, and also most of our shire councils. So I just have some concerns, and I wanted to put it out here for those who might think that Clive Palmer's a great Australian and he's doing a great job. And look, honestly, he did fund, some court action, which got a positive result for Australia. So we have to make sure that we acknowledge that, which was a great effort on Clive's behalf. So, well done there. But at the end of the day, this WHO pandemic agreement, international health regulations, whatever you want to call it, this is the only game in town. This is the biggest game in town. And if they get this over the line, then nothing else that anybody does is going to matter. Not a damn thing. Because they take full and absolute control of our whole country. And if people thought that what we saw with the last fraudulent, bogus, crap pandemic and all the things that governments did to us, if you think that was bad, that was not even a dress rehearsal to what they've got planned. What they've got planned is going to destroy our country completely and everybody in it. So, Clive might talk about economic policies. Forget all that crap, mate. Because if this gets over the line, nothing that you say is going to matter. The entire economic policies will be blown up. That'll be gone. And you won't have an economy. Because that is the plan. And the things that they're doing are getting into place to make that happen. So I think, I'm still available to talk to Clive Palmer. Sorry, I'm still available to talk to Clive Palmer. The door's still open. We're open to have some emergency meetings and kick this into gear and throw some serious funding at Billboard Battalion and actually in the real fight, get in the real fight to save Australia. Because anything else other than what I'm talking about, you're not. You're actually helping to sell our country out. It's that simple. So I also wanted to talk about somebody else who I have very, very serious concerns over. And like I said, this whole thing that I'm talking about now, these are my opinions. I could be wrong, but I don't really think so. But I could be. So for the point of the exercise, let's just say this is my opinion. So we need to talk next about our other fearless fighter for Australia, once more, a bit of sarcasm, Gina Rinehart. And I look at, so many of the things I've heard over the years. Some people either love Gina Rinehart or they hate her. And as you go along, you start to learn that this stuff has reasons. People have reasons. So if we look at Gina, and I want to focus on a couple of things that have happened within the last 12 months. So we've seen, in the media there, a lot of stuff about Gina Rinehart's funding of sporting events, and funding events, sports that, operate at Olympic level. And to all that, to put money into funding that and supporting it and sponsoring it, that's great. That is fantastic. But I'll say this, if the country is going to be destroyed, and many of the sports people who, would be playing these sports that Gina funds in some cases, when you start to see, world-class athletes dropping dead on the sporting arena because of what's been injected into them, you've got to wonder, maybe Gina should be putting some money into stopping that sort of stuff. So exactly the same as Clive Palmer. I thought Gina Rinehart would absolutely be falling over herself to help fund Billboard Battalion. Seems how she does so much anthropologic work and funds so many things that are great for Australia. But so where do we start with that? So I started to take an interest in what Gina Rinehart was saying back in August last year, which is 2024, when Billboard Battalion attended an event in Bendigo in central Victoria, Australia, as part of a big thing that Gina Rinehart was promoting and, as I understand, supporting, called the Bush Summit. Now, the name for a start, Bush Summit, sounds great. And when we went there, the day was put on, and there were quite a number of speakers and quite a number of panels that were held. And I just want to talk about something in a minute that came up with a number of the speakers. And one of them on one of these panels was Adam Giles. And Adam Giles is one of, as I understand it, Gina Rinehart's very senior executives. I think probably, her right-hand man, so to speak. So Gina put up, there was a video that they played of Gina Rinehart talking about stuff about Australia for about, quarter of an hour, about 15 minutes. And I listened to this video and I thought, this woman, Gina Rinehart, and I think I'm sadly mistaken, but I thought at the time she is an amazing, a great Australian. Because, you listen to the things that they say and the stuff that she talked about, and particularly about the politicians and that the Australian people have to push back against the politicians. She talked about their policies, and I'll just round it up by saying she spoke about politicians and their policies basically making it harder for business and virtually wiping out business and so on, particularly in rural Australia, and words to that effect. So we might do a much more in-depth thing about Gina Rinehart very, very soon, and we might highlight some of the specifics. But it was also interesting that Sky News' Rita Panahay actually did the opening introduction to Gina Rinehart's video in Bendigo. So, and she couldn't have done enough to praise Gina Rinehart. And so I'll tell you a bit later on about our experience with Win News and Rita Panahay and Peter Credlin. But anyway, at the end of the day, we heard Gina's speech, and it was absolutely amazing. And I thought, I wonder if she's actually written this herself, or whether she has got, because it was so good, or whether she's got some sort of advertising agency, a public relations agency, to write it for her. And it's just all crap, because it seemed to be so powerful and so good and so terrific. You thought she's the greatest thing since button-up boots. So anyway, along came some of the panels, and there was a couple of them where, as I mentioned before, Adam Giles, who, as I said, Gina's right-hand man, he was, talking on the panels, and a part of what he said was about the politicians not listening, or I think he said they're not listening. So I thought to myself, this is a common theme. There was also another speaker on the day who also said, they're not listening. And I'll just extrapolate a bit on that, where there was also one of the speakers there, from memory, was David Johinke, the president of the National Farmers Federation. And when we look back to the Ag Rally in Canberra, one of the things that David Johinke specifically made a point of was that the politicians are not listening. So we've got a bit of a common theme going on here. And the politicians not listening, that is an absolute massive problem for what we face in Australia, and particularly in the ag sector. So I put it to you that the politicians are not listening for two reasons. Number one, the instructions that they are given from the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization, and the United Nations are that the politicians do not listen. They do what they're told from international terrorist organizations, the three that I just mentioned. So the question, of course, is, why are they not listening? And if Gina Rinehart's man, Adam Giles, specifically said just that on stage in the public at this Bush summit, you would think that Gina Rinehart would be certainly open, given that she also has said very similar things and called for people to push back and get their message through. You would think that Gina Rinehart would take every opportunity to have somebody who is already doing that. Billboard Battalion is already doing that. And I have been doing that for 40 years. Billboard Battalion since the 22nd of June, June 2022. So we've already got the points on the board. We've already been doing this. And the one thing that we don't have is the funding, the backing to do it at a national scale. We already have the model. We already have the strategies and tactics, which work beautifully, but we need capacity. Hence the reason that we would put it to these billionaires to just help to fund us a bit. Amount of money that out of their everyday account would not be the loose change in the bottom of the drawer. So the question would be, why wouldn't they want to fund us? Why wouldn't they want to actually help to fight for Australia? Because this is what is on the line right now. This is deadly serious. And these are some of the questions that I would like to ask them. And exactly the same as Clive Palmer, I'm available to talk to Gina Rinehart, and I'll explain that, we exactly did try and get to talk to Gina Rinehart. In fact, I spoke personally to some of the people who are very, very high up in Gina Rinehart's organisation and put a lot of this stuff to them. And the response that came back from, I'm assuming, directions from Gina Rinehart is crickets. Nothing. So that leads me to believe, or leads me to ask the question, Is Gina Rinehart really somebody who wants to fight for Australia? Or is she also a liar? Is she just giving us political spin? Exactly the same as it's possible Clive Palmer's doing. Because these people, and how it works at that level, is that people despise others who are filthy rich. And I'm not saying that is justified. You know, there's some people that got to be filthy rich because they're just good operators. Very astute, very intelligent, go-getters and capable, organised, and they run a good ship. So I'm not saying that somebody who's rich and got rich by all the right reasons doesn't deserve that. So as we see, with some of the massive big bankers and oil barons over 100 years ago in the US and in England, they were filthy rich people who were copping a lot of flack. So they got companies, the likes of advertising or public relations companies, to start working for them and say, how can you make us not be so hated in the public eye because of our wealth? So they came up with ideas about, once again, anthropological enterprises. Put money into this, sponsor that, fund public things, fund public people. And that's what they worked out was the answer to that problem. And it was very, very successful. So some of the biggest criminals in the world now actually put a lot of money into doing things that give them the illusion that they care about the community and they're giving back and all that sort of stuff, when in fact it is just an illusion. It's spin. It's political spin that the politicians only wish they could have. So the possibility with Clive Palmer and Gina Rinehart is that they are liars and that they are just full of political spin. That's all it is. They make believe that they care about our country and our people, when in fact they laugh at us. They laugh at us while they're sticking the knife in between your rib cage. They laugh at us while they're a part of the global elite movement who are ripping the very blood out of our body. And they intend to totally rip the blood out of your body. And I mean that literally. That is not something that is simply an analogy. The July 19 international health regulations that the elites, the government, the terrorist organisations, whatever you want to call it, are going to sign us up to, if we can't stop it first, will literally take the blood out of your body. And I mean that for everything it is. So we get to the question then. Is Gina Rinehart, with all her publicity, all her, I've bought back the Rossi Boots Company, Australian boot making company. Oh, and I've bought Dryzerbone, iconic Australian companies. Is that all part of political spin? Is that all part of some sort of a publicity stunt, some marketing ploy? Is that to give people the illusion that Gina Rinehart actually cares about Australia, and in particular the agricultural sector, mainly the top end? Because as it appears to me, she spends a lot of money to build that persona. And I mean, that's even more reason why you've got to start looking at where she's really at. Now, if she's not happy to fund Billboard Battalion or to give us some of the funding, and keep in mind, she spends, I believe, millions on, as I said, sports, athletes, and people talk about other things that she funds behind the scenes, that don't get headlines that nobody knows about. And that's great. That's fantastic. I think that's amazing. That's terrific. But where she refuses to even talk to the one organisation out of everything that I can see that she's funding, the one organisation that actually has the points on the board, literally fighting for Australia. And a big part of it is the ag sector. And as I keep saying, there's a tractor on our shirts. This is representing the ag sector. And I know that Gina Rinehart, spends a fortune on on stations and beef in the top end of Australia. And I just wonder, of course, is Gina's apprehension to help fund somebody who would actually fight the corrupt criminal politicians and governments, is that possibly some payback, some thanks very much for the government sending many of the family station owners broke and putting Australian agriculture into such a shocking position that the only people that can afford to buy land now are the likes of multi-billion-dollar superannuation companies or multi-billionaire maybe mining magnates, just for example, or other people who are in Australia that have billions of dollars, because they seem to be buying up big chunks of farmland and water resources. Who else is doing that? Let me think. Oh, that's right. Bill Gates in the United States. He's bought up over 250,000 acres of United States prime agricultural land, because their policies also send family farmers broke. So is our old mate Gina Rinehart actually not what she makes out to be? Is she spending a fortune on public relations companies to make her look good, to say all the things that appear to be good? Because I make the same comment about her as Clive Palmer. She would be operating at the levels that these global elites who do want to destroy our country, our lives, and actually end your life and that of your kids and grandkids. And this is going to happen very, very soon. Is she really at their beck and call? Is it a situation where if she doesn't play the game, then all of a sudden they shut her operation down? Is this how it all works? Is this how the intimidation, the persecution, the corruption, the blackmail, is that how this all works? I think it's in with a big chance. I really do. So for all the people that are criticising Gina Rinehart for being, and the things they say are really, really terrible. There's a lot of the ringers from the top end, a lot of the croppers, a lot of the sheep country down here, a lot of the dairy industry, a lot of the chicken industry who are going, people like Gina Rinehart are, well, I can't really, use that kind of language here tonight. As in everything, I go in with an open mind, and, I make an opinion about people based on how they treat me and my experiences with them. So, but I must say that many of the things that people are saying about the likes of Clive Palmer and Gina Rinehart, I'm really starting to lean a fair bit that way, because I don't think these people are the heroes of our country. I think they have the capacity to be the heroes of our country. And if they don't take that opportunity, they don't commit to that, then I am forced to start to think, well, they're not on the part of the heroes. They're on the part of the terrorists who want to take our country down. And once again, these are my opinions. I'm only saying that because that's what I believe. So I'll finish up by saying the door is still open. I'm happy to talk to either Gina or Clive or any of the other billionaires or rich people we have in our country, because you can never burn your bridges completely, but I think they're blowing them up from the other side. And when I say to people, excuse me, when I say to people about the 19th of July this year, which is only weeks away, and Australia becomes totally connected and joined up to the international health regulations and the World Health Organization, and that gives them the capacity to destroy our country. All our jobs, all our businesses, shut down our food production, shut down areas under this so-called climate change crap, to take over people's farmland, to take over people's houses and kick you out of them and off them. Now, make no mistake, that is very, very real. And that's what this international health regulations, international pandemic treaty, whatever you want to call it, that happens on the 19th of July, that will put in place them having the power to do exactly that. Literally that. So for the people who own a lot of property, don't get used to that, because you're going to lose it. That is an absolute guaranteed fact. And I can tell you right now that we have a very, very tiny window of opportunity to fight back and stop that. So I'd say to anybody who's sitting there and, they think they're quite secure, they've got good jobs, a business, and whether they're farmers, whether they're people who own their homes and have good jobs and they're quite secure, that's about to all change. That is absolutely going to change. And within a few years, you won't have anything. That is the plan. If in fact you are still alive. And I know that's sort of a thing to think about, but that's the situation. So that is why I decided to make this video about our old mate Gina Rinehart and our old mate up in Queensland there, old Clive Palmer. I think Clive said, I'm 80 or something like that, it doesn't bother me, blah, blah, blah. So you don't have kids and grandkids. Gina Rinehart, what, do you have any kids or grandkids? Do you have any family? The bottom line is that I think many of these people who are in on this think that they're some kind of immunity. They've got some kind of immunity. They're rubbing shoulders with all the knobs and they're going to be looked after. Well, I put it to you that you're not. The plan is that you no longer exist. You are, for the time being, what they colloquially term as a useful idiot. And I put it to you that the life of you and your family is not going to be held in any more high regard than the lives of anybody who just works a 9-to-5 job for, $700 a week. You mean nothing to these people. You are a means to an end. And history has proven time and time again that has been the situation. But this is a different time in history. This is a time where they have the weapons and they have the level of corruption and control over what's happening to make this stuff happen. And just a couple of things to keep in mind. We're seeing something happen now. We're seeing some members of police forces who now miraculously are being brought back into the job. They've got the green light. All of a sudden, they wouldn't go and get these poisonous so-called vaccines injected into them. And now all of a sudden, they're getting the green light to come back. What are the chances? Are we going to see the same for our nurses and doctors, the brave ones, not the cowards who sold us out? But are they going to see them get the green light to come back? Wonder why. Maybe police. Maybe it's because coming towards the end of July, when these health regulations kick into gear and we give power to the international terrorist organisation, the WHO, they're going to need more and more cops to start forcing the issue, because as things get more draconian, more dictatorial, and the government and the WHO attacks the Australian people start to fight back. So they're going to need more cops. But we're working very seriously on making our cops understand that do not support them, because they're coming for your families too. And as another thing of interest, the fraudulent war, the BS, the orchestrated and choreographed war in Ukraine. It's amazing that Australia has, apparently, according to this scumbag Filth Albanese, is committing Australian troops, and a fair big chunk of them, to boots on the ground in Ukraine. Now, they also, make no mistake, made some changes in the parliament there not that long ago to allow foreign troops to operate in Australia. Wonder why that'd be. Perhaps Australian soldiers and military who actually love their country and love their families, if they see UN troops, the terrorists in there, attacking their families here in Australia, as a military, they may tell the traitors at the top of the military in Australia, they might tell those traitors to go stick it. They're actually going to fight to defend their families and their country. So one of the great ways to stop that from happening is maybe to have the Australian military overseas deployed over there in Ukraine. Just a thought. What could be the chances of that happening? As old Crocodile Dundee, old mate, said, better than average. So I think we need to do more than just watch this space. We need to get active right now. I think we need to get people sending the likes of Palmer and Gina Rinehart, start getting into them and saying, well, hang on, what's going on here? I just heard this video from Farmer Wade. Billboard Battalion have been in this fight. They're the real ones in the fight. They're the ones that have the most skin in the game, and they're not multi-millionaires. They're not multi-billionaires. They work on the smell of an oily rag. So if you're really interested, Clive Palmer and Gina Rinehart, in actually fighting for our country, why wouldn't you put some dough in towards Billboard Battalion? Why wouldn't you actually support the people who are in the fight for Australia to save the country? And it's great to put it into athletes and so on, but put it into what really actually matters. Because if we get to the situation where the 19th of July 2025 gets here and we haven't got it over the line, then all the athletes that you're putting money into and the rest of it may end up in a wooden box very, very soon. And your money will have been wasted. In fact, your money will have been used to mask, to camouflage what's really happening. And I would ask you the question, is that actually your intention? Is that the purpose? Is that what you're really about? To do your bit to help the global terrorists from taking over our country and murdering everybody in it? So therefore, it is something to think about. All right, people, I might call it quits at that. I'd say thanks very much for watching. This is the sort of stuff that we do. The only reason I can talk about these things is because we get around the countryside and we get involved in this. We go to the events, we go to the things, we go to the places. We meet people, we talk to people, we get involved in the politics of our country. And I can tell you right now, it stinks. It's rotten to the core. So therefore, that's why we do what we do. So if you're happy to help us to fight for your family's lives, quite literally, then, yeah, please be consider giving us some helping hand. The most important thing that we need is finance, is money to keep what we do going and to hopefully expand it and give us a lot more capacity to fight as hard as we possibly can for our country, because your politicians certainly are not. In fact, most of them are the ones who are helping to destroy your country. And I can tell you right now, from what I've seen so far, and these are my opinions, our rich and elites are also helping to destroy our country. So let's see whether they actually show their true colours or their patriotic colours and they come out and help and support and fight for Australia by supporting Billboard Battalion. All right. Thank you very much to everybody. We'll be back tomorrow. So be safe. Enjoy the rain that's coming through South Australia and Northern Victoria at the minute. Desperately needed. So yeah, hopefully we'll see some green stuff growing soon, and it is just a prelude to follow-up rains and a good season and some relief and some pressure taken off our farmers. Thanks very much. We'll see you later.